Ready to go. Let's go, man. Let's get this game started, bro.
Get the game started. Blow the whistle. Show the world. Let's go tonight.
What is up, everybody? Welcome into another episode of The Cut. I am your host, Christian Williams, and I am here with Randy Hall. Randy, how are you tonight, dude?
Doing pretty good, man. Fun, semi-long weekend at the Fantasy Expo in Canton. A lot of fun things, a lot of fun people. But now back to business, you know?
Yeah. If you guys, if you were at the expo and I got to meet you and Randy got to meet you, it was a pleasure. I can't wait to be back next year. It was a really good weekend. I wish I could have met more people. I wish I could have spoken with more people. I think I'll probably go down a little earlier next year. I'll probably take Friday off. But we were feeling it out, and it was a really good weekend. And shout out to everyone who was involved, whether it was the Fantasy Affair or Bob, who put the whole thing together. Just a great weekend. If you're a listener and you don't write or produce content, highly recommend. Sunday would have been a really good day for consumers. It's definitely a good spot for learning fantasy football. So Expo was awesome. That was the majority of our weekend. So we don't have any like weird fucking updates like we did with the kickball last week, I feel like, or maybe 2 weeks ago. All right, guys, this is an exciting episode for us. We traditionally have this a little closer to the season, I feel like, but the reason for that is because we split it out into multiple different shows. We have normally quarterbacks, running backs, wide receivers, tight ends, and we're doing all of them tonight. We're giving our A1s, which is our title for my guys or guys that we're just all in on for 2021. I'll bet you guys can guess a couple of mine just based on my tweets. But yeah, so we are going to be doing that. Again, just head over to thecutffb.com, bookmark that, and we'll do the plugs later because I want to get right into the A1s. But first, we have a couple of news items from the preseason week one. We were able to kind of catch up on some of the games. The news,
barely.
Yeah, I know. The main news today, I don't know if everyone saw, but Melvin Gordon is now dealing with a groin injury. Javonte Williams looked like the real deal if I've ever seen it. We've been screaming that on this podcast that Javonte is really, really good. How do you think that this is Javonte's opportunity to just take it and go?
Probably at least take like the lead back role earlier than maybe most expected, I would say. It's Gordon, if he's on the team, he's going to keep a role. It's just that plain and simple.
Yeah, I think he will. But I do think that switch happens a little earlier. And, you know, I think a lot of the backs look good. Royce Freeman looked pretty good in that game. We were at the expo eating dinner when Drew Lock was going crazy. And that's another one of these items here. Vic Fangio said that there is no separation in the quarterback battle. I think he's full of shit because Drew Lock made throws that Teddy Bridgewater can only dream of. And he may have been able to do it against high school competition. Teddy Bridgewater has never made a throw like the 80-yard touchdown throw that Drew Lock had. Randy, do you still expect Drew Lock to win this job, especially after week one?
Well, yeah, of course.
Okay, good.
It makes no sense for the future of the team for them not to give it to Lock.
Yeah. I mean, they've got to see what they have with him because Teddy's not your future. And if neither of them are your future, then you have to go get someone next year. So because they have too much talent on that offense. That offense is absurd. And that defense, Patrick Surtain, shout out to Surtain for the pick six. Awesome. Okay, so that's the Broncos news. Rookie quarterback news. So Every rookie quarterback looked good in their own right. I know some people are disappointed with various quarterbacks. Dave Kluge, big Bears guy, shit on Justin Fields for his touchdown pass being on a leak play, which is, reasonable. He was wide open. It wasn't anything to get super stoked about, but I still got stoked because you know what? He threw a touchdown. And he ran for a touchdown. Justin Fields looked great. Trevor Lawrence looked pretty good from what we saw. Zach Wilson looked okay. Mac Jones was probably the most impressive to me, even over Justin Fields, just simply because Mac Jones was checking down, he was being safe, but that's Patriots are going to need that. That's part of that offense.
Hey, you know what? That's been Mac Jones' highlight reel for about 2 years now, so not
true.
shocked.
Yeah.
That's all the great passes he makes right there.
Yeah. Hi, Jeff. Thanks for joining us. Stick around for at least a little bit, because as we get into our A1s, I'll talk about a guy that I talk about a lot. Can anyone guess who my first
talked
A1
a lot about
is?
Saturday too, right, Jeff?
Yeah, that's facts. Yeah. It's funny at the expo when people would just come up to me and talk about this person. All right, Randy, you just ready to jump into the A1s? We've got a rock. Yeah, no. Jeff is the funniest thing at the expo was Jeff bouncing around from group to group. If you guys didn't meet Jeff at the expo, or if you didn't go to the expo, For Whom J Bell Tolls is his name. And he just went everywhere. He would sit down, he would get up after 3 seconds and walk to another place. It was the funniest shit. I was dying. Shout out Jeff. Jeff, we need to maybe hang out since we both live in Columbus, First time we met, 2 hours north, but whatever. All right, let's get into our A1s. I'm going to go first. And you know why I'm going to go first?
Just get out of the way. Yeah.
Yeah, because I'm going to talk about Justin Fields here for a second. So if you guys have ever listened to the show, or if you've ever watched this show, you know how I feel about Justin Fields. This is a guy that, he came out as my quarterback one. He got drafted to probably the worst situation of all the rookie quarterbacks, and I said, that doesn't matter. Justin Fields is still quarterback one. Shout out Tom. Hell yeah. Justin Fields QB1. So for fantasy, thanks, Dave. Yes, I do like Fields. So for fantasy in 2021, some people could say, man, you've got to temper the hype, right? He's not going to play that much. Andy Dalton is the starter. That's what Coach Nagy keeps saying. That's quickly changing. If you guys kept up with some of the news today, Nagy said, we want to see him now with Allen Robinson. We want to get him some work with the ones. Of course you do. You should have been getting him work with the ones in the first place, but I'll take it, whatever. If he corrects his mistake, there's a chance that Justin Fields starts from day one against the Rams. I still think that they make Andy Dalton the sacrificial lamb. They throw him out there. But as soon as Justin Fields takes over, he offers something that is highly coveted in fantasy football, and that is a rushing floor. We saw it in his first preseason game. When he runs the ball, he looks like a freaking gazelle, man. His strides are long. He's able to outrun very, very fast defenders. And you can say, you don't want to get too hyped off the preseason week one. No, I'll just get hype off of the player that he is, the prospect that he is, and the situation. And the situation is that the Bears want to throw the ball. They've always wanted to throw the ball, and they're going to throw the ball with a quarterback that can throw the ball. And Justin Fields is that. I believe that he's going to have a Rookie of the Year campaign this year. I think it starts week 2. I think if you draft him in your fantasy drafts, right now he's going as QB 19. In points per game, I have him at QB 14. And so, and listen to me, guys, like that's me tempering my expectations. I promise you. Someone pointed out that I have him at like a very small amount of rushing yards. I do. And that's just because I need to play it safe with Justin Fields so you guys don't yell at me. Whereas I think Justin Fields can finish as a QB1 this year. I think I've made that pretty clear, and I think he's a QB1 forever. He's a dynasty QB1 right now. So, Randy, your thoughts on Justin Fields?
I mean, I love his talent. Obviously, he's ridiculous. I think he could flourish in this offense with the weapons they have. I think he's the key piece to make this offense actually work and possibly keep Nagy's job around. He's going to be insane. I have him obviously projected like lower. He's higher for me in points per game, obviously, like you, but he's a little bit lower just because kind of naggy. I'll say that. Play calling I'm not ecstatic about yet. And then just him possibly not playing like 4 or 5 games. I really don't see it getting past 4 or 5 games.
Yeah, it can't. Well, here's the thing. We just saw it.
I swear they don't have like an easy schedule early either.
Week 2 is against the Bengals.
And that's like it though, I believe, for like the easy, like Rams I don't remember. We'll get to that next show, I guess. But either way, Fields is going to be great when he's on. He's going to have his little struggles because that's a rookie quarterback. That's what you should expect. But QB 14 is probably where I would expect him to be, especially in the first year, learning new offense, getting it down.
Yeah. All right. It's your turn. You get to talk about your first A1. Who is it, Randy?
Depends on what graphic you put up, Christian.
It's this guy.
Okay, 2. There's 2. Okay, I don't know. Yeah. Obviously, I think a lot of the community now is on Tua, but there is still a lot of like, especially not like industry people, not on Tua as much. Obviously, with an ADP of 153, it's late 12th round, QB 22. He's my QB 16 and our consensus. It ended up 19 for points per game. There's no really way around it. Kind of the perfect storm of just almost cursed last year for Tua, coming off a possibly career-ending injury. I mean, if we're really getting into it, came into a rookie year, so it's always going to be a little bit harder. Limited preparation due to COVID, limited preparation due to injury, limited playbook, limited opportunity, not getting to play till halfway through the year, and then kind of getting pulled on and pulled off at the same time. The injury limited running ability as he starts to regain confidence in his body, as we all know, with injuries you have to do. And top it off, limited weapons. I mean, his best weapons, Gesicki, Parker, Preston Williams. I think that's the fairest way to say it. Last year, Gesicki was the only one that stayed even relatively healthy, I'd say. Parker probably next, but obviously Preston doing his Preston Williams thing, doing really good, then getting hurt. But the offense was just completely limited. Gailey would not open up the playbook for him. It was a completely different skill set, completely different playbook when Fitzpatrick was on the field. At best, you could say it was a balanced attack with 2 on the field. Most likely it was run heavy. But so all that perfect storm, sluggish year off the injury. 16 game pace, though, he would have been QB 17 last year. So, like, that's not great, but it's already better than what we're projecting for this year with the ADP, which makes no sense because he's not getting taken out for anyone now. So he's got he's actually got 2 coordinators now, which is weird, but
very strange.
There's no way that they're going to just continue to be ultra run heavy, especially when they didn't invest a high capital in a guy like Najee or Javonte. So all reports that this passing game is looking a lot more explosive than last season during training camp. And that's even with all these early injuries to this receiving core, with the only one really being healthy is Jalen Waddle. So that's good for him, obviously, and good for Tua because he's got a rapport with him already. But he had an injury-riddled season with all these wide receivers being hurt, and he only had Parker, Williams, Wilson, Lynn Bowden. Now you add in Will Fuller and Jalen Waddle. There's no way this doesn't look better from a passing standpoint. So if you're giving me him most likely back to full health, so we should be expecting a little bit more running, more the 2 of college with a little bit slandered down because it's not college anymore. But RPO with explosive, good arm, accurate at all levels. I just don't see how he's not an incredible QB2 option for you. I think I'm kind of still most of my projections, I would say, even if some people have them think that I'm a little high on people, I would say I'm a little bit lower. I'm more towards the floor than the ceiling for most of my players. And I have him at 16, obviously. I think he's a fantastic QB2 for you, and I think he's an incredible late-round quarterback 1 for you in the 1 quarterback leagues where you could just dominate everything else and take Tua, Worst case, a couple games, you bring in someone else. I mean, that's perfect strategy for one quarterback league anyways. I don't see how you go wrong with Tua this year.
Dude, I am fully behind this. I'm more behind this with every passing day. Tua didn't have great statistics against the Bears. I will fully admit that. I watched this game while I was driving, so I missed a lot of plays because, safety. You don't want to crash. But I had to have the game on, of course, because of Justin Fields. But what Tua was doing was he was throwing into tight windows consistently, which is something that he was afraid to do last year. He wasn't afraid to do it because he can't do it. I think he was afraid to do it because that leash was there. And now with no leash, Tua knows he can sling the thing, and he has a strong arm. He bulked up. I honestly feel like I need to adjust my projections on him because I'm in your camp.
As I was writing, it was like, hey, God, I am really low on him, it feels like. And it felt like I was doing that a lot, but I guess that's because I was making good arguments for my players. So,
yeah.
There's a very real chance he's the quarterback one. I think he's the fringe guy, just like him and Baker I have is the same category and same tier.
Yeah.
Where they both could easily be QB1s for me, but they're just slightly out on that next tier.
Yeah, for sure. Another guy that could be a QB1, and you guys are going to have to bear with me here because I know how
Thanks, Kev. Wish we could have saw you this weekend. Hopefully get to meet you sometime soon down the road.
Yes. Hell yeah. Missed you, Kevin. All right. Another guy that could be a QB1. You guys have to bear with me. I promise you I will make a decent, compelling case for Cam Newton as one of my A1 quarterbacks this year. Your first instinct is going to be to say, Mac Jones looked way better than Cam Newton in their preseason game. Did he, though? Probably. Cam didn't look great. But here's the thing. Here's the thing, guys. He had Chase Young eating him up. Isaiah Wynn, I believe, was the starting left tackle. Chase Young is as good as they come. Cam was consistently pressured. Even when he didn't get sacked, he was just getting just a ton of pressure in his face, which we know that Cam can make things happen in regular games. Cam would have broken out of the pocket. He would have run the ball. He does that. He wasn't doing that in a preseason game, and that's okay. Don't take preseason week 1 as the only thing that you base the take off of. That would be my advice here. The reason Cam Newton is one of my A1 quarterbacks this year, he's being drafted at QB 26. In that is the risk that he loses the job at some point during the season. I get that. I'm starting to think that might happen throughout the season because I do think that there's a world in which Cam does not perform well and Mac Jones does step in. However, while you have Cam Newton on your team, he's going to perform at a high level. The reason he's going to perform at a high level is because, as I mentioned with Justin Fields, he brings something that most quarterbacks do not, and that's a rushing floor. And it doesn't even have to be yardage with Cam because he is their goal line back. For as long as he is in the game, they're going to run that stupid fucking quarterback draw, and he's going to run the ball in. And you're going to be upset. I'm a Damian Harris truther. You're going to be upset if you have Damian Harris. You're going to be upset if you have Ramondre Stevenson, which you shouldn't in redraft leagues. But Cam Newton is going to vulture some of those touchdowns where I think you can say, okay, that's all consistent from last year. That doesn't matter all that much. Cam couldn't throw the ball last year. He couldn't. And the reason he couldn't, or he didn't, or they didn't ask him to, was because after Edelman went down, Jacoby Myers was the only viable receiving option in that offense. I like Damiere Byrd. I think Damiere Byrd had a good year. Damiere Byrd should not have been a first or second option in any offense ever. And so the Patriots went out. They said, we're going to go compete. We're almost ready to compete. And so we got an improved offensive line. Check. It didn't show against Washington. I understand.
It's early.
Exactly. Yeah. The line's going to take time to mesh. So you've got an improved offensive line. You've got an influx of weapons. You've got Jonnu Smith. You've got Hunter Henry when he returns.
Both out. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's just both out. Let's be real here.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and then you've got Kendrick Bourne. You've got Nelson Aguilar. You have what seems to be a chance that N'Keal Harry actually gets his ass on the field this year. I don't know for what, but you have more options. And so when you add in all of that, added in with the offensive line, you're going to see more efficiency out of Cam. You might still see the short game. You might still see the throws over the middle. That's where Cam makes his money. That's where his bread is buttered. And so I think we're going to see another version of Cam. He stayed healthy all of last year outside of COVID. And I know people want to say, oh, well, Cam's going to get hurt. Is he? I mean, this is probably the healthiest we're going to see Cam probably, maybe for the rest of his career, I think.
Probably his best offensive line, too.
Exactly. So you're going to keep him upright, and I think we're going to see a good Cam Newton. I have him as my quarterback 17. So essentially, this isn't saying Cam Newton's going to finish as a top 5 quarterback. I don't think that. I think there's a chance he finishes as a back end 1 because last year, with all of that working against him, he was quarterback 16. And so now he's being drafted 10 spots behind that. Again, I understand you bake in the risk of him losing the job. I think you're baking it in too far, and so I'm eating him up. You can get him. You don't have to draft a quarterback in redraft leagues and one quarterback right now. You can just pick up Cam in your last round. Go for it. Do it.
And it's just one of those arguments like Mac Jones is going to replace him. Mac Jones is going to replace him. So Patriots are going to be worse than last year. That's what you're telling me. I mean, that's at that point, You're telling me as a team, that team's somehow going to be worse than last year. Are they going to be much improved? I don't really think so, but I think they're back to a playoff caliber team again when they, just had the 15th pick. So they're basically a playoff caliber team. I mean, that's ridiculous. And I could promise you Bill is not going to just turn over the team like the Dolphins did last year where Fitz was producing and they just like, wow, future Tua. Bill's not fucking doing that.
No, he wants to win. He wants to beat
Cam's
Brady.
Producing, he's on the field, and if they're winning games, Cam's producing. I mean, it's just plain and simple.
Cause and effect. Very simple.
By the way, they don't they have some divisional games early, but they don't have a hard schedule early either. In my opinion,
have a hard schedule at all. They have a very easy schedule, so it's a perfect storm to just eat up a guy that could finish as a QB1 with literally your last pick. It's
very true.
You got to bake in the cost of acquisition. Randy, your second quarterback
we've gone through 3 possible quarterback ones. Let's go through a definite quarterback one quick. The guy that I'm targeting, just in every draft possible, and it's for value too, Ryan Tannehill. ADP 81, so back end of the 7th round, QB 10. He is my QB 10 and consensus QB 10, and I still think that's closer to the floor. Like, this is being conservative, in my opinion. Since becoming the starter week 7 of 2019, Tannehill's only been outscored by Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson in points. That's what's being 16th in pass attempts in that time frame. 2019, 16 game pace. If he was actually the starter, he'd be quarterback 6. Last year, he was the quarterback 7 through all the games. What are we doing? I understand you want to bake in some risk, but what's the risk? He's been on a run-heavy team that's still going to be run-heavy, but just brought in quite possibly one of the best receivers we've ever seen, and Julio Jones, who was going to expand this offense into a little bit more balanced, I'd say. I wouldn't say it's going to drastically change from a huge running team to a huge throwing team. I think it's going to be actually 50-50 this year. And they have a new offensive coordinator that doesn't just focus on running the ball anymore. Last season, they were pretty much about 52-48% in favor of running. I think it's going to be 50-50 this year, pretty much down the middle, and that's kind of how I have it statted out. So that does mean Derrick Henry's not getting 2,000 yards again, but I think that's good for Derrick Henry and good for the Titans. They need to be a little bit more diverse and able to throw the ball at more times, and that's exactly what they made this move to get Julio for. And that's why they brought in Josh Reynolds to replace Humphreys as well. I really think they have done all they can to make Tannehill as great as possible and this offense as lethal as possible in both aspects. I think Henry can continue to be a god in this offense, and Tannehill can continue to be a quarterback 1 lock with top 5 upside. That's what you're getting. You're getting Tannehill at his floor. I think his floor is pretty much a QB 11 or 12. So if you're getting him at 10 or slightly after and a better value for a draft, you're easily winning. I think that's kind of how I projected it. So I'm not projecting some ridiculous touchdown numbers or anything like that, but that is completely in the realm of possibility. I think he's been the most efficient quarterback pretty much over the last 2 years. Maybe you take away some of that. That's kind of what I did. I gave him a little bit more interceptions, but there's more upside in the passing game now. There's more volatility. There's more explosion. I gave him less. I believe I gave him the same amount of touchdowns and a couple more interceptions just to really hammer home that maybe this offense doesn't change fully, and I'm somehow wrong a little bit. I gave him a 33 touchdown to 11 picks. I think that's his floor. I'm perfectly fine if that's how it ends up and he's QB 10. I'm fine winning my league with a quarterback 10 and two running back ones and a wide receiver 1, because that's really how you can draft this year. I just don't see how we can take, if you're not getting your pick of the top 5 quarterbacks, I think it's just like the tight ends. You should wait, take Tannehill, get the safe guy with top 5 upside. I won't say like he could be quarterback 1 because he has a rushing floor, but it's not like as high as the top guys. But like realistically, he could get over 40 touchdowns, and I'm pretty positive he does. Yeah, I'm just being conservative.
Yeah, no, it's within the realm of possibility. And dude, like I think people are going to push back and say, well, Arthur Smith is gone, so the efficiency goes away, right? Because that's all we know.
That's what I baked in.
Exactly. You can bake that in. And when you factor in the notion that they're going to pass more, they are going to pass more. There is no doubt about it. They don't get Julio Jones if they don't intend to throw the ball more. The reason they intend to throw the ball more is because Ryan Tannehill has been so damn good at throwing the ball. Granted, another cause and effect thing. Has he been that good because Derrick Henry opens that up for him? Absolutely. But he's the best play action quarterback in the league. Like there is no debate.
Derrick Henry didn't get taken away, guys.
Yeah.
And guess what? The play action only gets better with Julio. Everything gets better with Julio. That's how this works. Yeah. I legitimately almost made sure that I projected for his floor. I legitimately, the pass attempts, it's up a good amount, but it's because an extra game and the differing offense. The yards aren't, it's less than 500 yards more. It's the same amount of touchdowns, 4 more picks, and 3 less rushing touchdowns than he had last year. That's my projection. And that's QB 10. That means he's having a worse year. I'm projecting a worse year for a guy that's going to have a better year. Like that's how crazy I had to make it, so I didn't have Ryan Tannehill as the top 3 quarterback.
Yeah, and top 3 is within his realm of possibility, guys. Randy mentioned his rushing floor. He does have it. It's still there, and they're running the same offense with obviously just more focus on getting wide receivers targets. It's going to be.
It's not like the Vikings changed their offense completely because they got rid of their offensive coordinator became head coach somewhere else. That's the same thing that just happened here.
Right. And they were still efficient, and Kirk Cousins was better,
That's
guys.
The exact same thing happened because they got a really good wide receiver added in too with the offense, just like the Vikings.
Yeah. All right, that'll do it for our A1 quarterbacks, but we're going to get right into our running backs. I'm going to kick it off with my boy, DeAndre Swift. I've talked about this guy quite a bit here on the Twitter sphere, and this is a guy that I am very, very bullish on going into 2021. He is being drafted at RB15, and I have him projected at running back 6. Here's where, I'm already going to hedge this because of the groin injury, but he is starting to work back. I'm a little nervous that he has a groin injury. I think it's precautionary that they're keeping him out. Assuming that DeAndre Swift is able to keep full health throughout 2021, which I think is very, very possible with how they plan to use him. And that is a main reason that he is one of my A1 running backs. He finished his RB18 in 2020 despite playing more than 50% of snaps just 6 times. The dude was ultra efficient with his touches. He was by far the best running back that they had last year. I'm sorry, Adrian Peterson. I understand that you were there too. You're an all-time great. However, DeAndre Swift deserved more snaps last year. He showed us that he's more than just an elusive back. When we scouted him, when Randy and I scouted him, most of what he did was he made people miss. But then when you watch his film from 2020, he is willing to just power through guys, and he has the ability to do it. He's not a small guy. He is still elusive, and he displayed a ton of good footwork that would translate to, a lead back role. People are scared. They brought in Jamal Williams. That's okay. So this offense is going to mirror the Saints / the Chargers. That is, all reports indicate that they want to use a 2-back system. They want it to be thunder and lightning. And you know what? Lightning is always the better of the 2 backs in that situation. And you know who lightning is? Lightning is DeAndre Swift. So DeAndre Swift is to Alvin Kamara as Jamal Williams is to Latavius Murray. DeAndre Swift is to Austin Ekeler as Jamal Williams is to fucking Melvin Gordon when he was there. But we'll give it. He's better than Josh Kelly.
I was going to give Jamal more like Melvin Gordon and like Mark Ingram instead of Latavius Murray, but it's, whatever.
That's fair. Yeah. So here's the thing too, guys. He has a quarterback that notoriously cannot stretch the field. They have receivers that cannot really stretch the field. They have Perryman, they have Tyrell Williams. I understand that. Those guys don't move the needle for me. The guys that I think are going to feast within this offense are DeAndre Swift and TJ Hawkinson. And DeAndre Swift could very, very well lead this team in targets as a running back. We've seen it within an offensive scheme like this. I think we're going to see that this year. I think Jamal Williams is going to get his fair share of targets as well. Last year, his DVOA was 14th among running backs. His defensive yards above replacement our defensive adjusted yards above replacement were 16th in the league. Guys, even if he's in a committee, he has top 5 potential. I almost wrote top 3. I think that's within his realm of possibility. However, I projected him at RB6 when you get him at RB15, and that's going to start to come down as like the injury lingers. I'm still eating him up. I'm still taking DeAndre Swift everywhere I possibly can because I think this is a guy that we're going to talk about as, oh shit, should I rank him top 5 next year? I think that's going to be kind of the arc. I think he's better than Jonathan Taylor, but that's beside
Miles Sanders?
Yeah.
Oof.
Yeah. Don't say that.
I had to.
I know.
That's exactly the conversation. I love Swift. Obviously, he's my favorite running back in that class, unlike you. But
when we adjusted our grades, that's how it ended up. So
I know. He's RB14 for me, and he's honestly, I just looked, he's less than 3 points below RB10, I believe it was. Yeah, so it easily could be a running back one. The injury is the only thing holding me back right now, but I agree. I think him and Jamal will have a lot of value for teams, but obviously Swift is the top end option. But I'm gonna get into a better version of DeAndre Swift for my.
That's fair.
A1.
I agree.
Austin Ekeler. It's a guy that I've been infatuated with this offseason and this fantasy season, obviously. Guy I took yesterday in a draft when I drove home, and a guy I'll probably try and take again in the next couple drafts that we have. Dude, the dude is just ridiculous. And he does it on less touches than should be allowed. It's literally him and Kamara are the mold for this type of running back, and they're both absolute studs, the best possible it could be at the position in this kind of style. His ADP is 13th overall, obviously started the second round, basically RB10, my RB7, the Cuts consensus RB4, because I believe you're actually higher than me on him, but that's because I'm conservative on him. Shocker, right? He was actually RB26 last year in only 10 games, but 16 game pace of RB5. The year before, he was RB4 when he was splitting time with the good Melvin Gordon and fresh Melvin Gordon, by the way. But last year, 11.6 rushes a game, 4.5 yards per carry, 6.5 targets per game, 5.4 receptions, 7.46 yard per receptions. It's about 186 rushes, 848 yards, 104 targets, 86 receptions, 645 yards. 1.6 rushing touchdowns, 3.2 receiving touchdowns. It's about 261, 17.4. That's basically my fucking projection. I had to go back through because I was like, this seems like it's probably really close to what I have. I just stat it out. I'm basically projecting the same rushing attempts that he should have got if he played all year. Less yards, less targets, less catches, less receiving yards, a slightly higher touchdown rate, but he deserves some regression in that aspect. That means I'm definitely low on Austin Ekeler because he is amazing. Him getting 16 games, you would think there's going to be a couple games where he gets a little bit more work. I think he's earned it. In only 8 games with Herbert last year, he got 63 targets. That's 126 target pace. Obviously, he's not going to get that. Like, I'm expecting a little bit slow games here, whatever. But that's still a shot to get over 100 targets at running back. That's insane production value for a running back. And everyone knows targets are more valuable than rushes.
By a lot.
I have him getting less rushes than you. I don't have him breaking 200 carries.
Yeah, so I do.
I know. That's our difference, really. There's a realistic chance that he could be the RB1 this year and barely get over 200 carries. That's not even a question, in my opinion. He actually has the 7th easiest running back schedule as well. He has the new OC in town from where? The Saints. I mean, I don't see how you could see his situation and see that he's clearly a top 10 running back. I think he's clearly a top 5 running back. The only way he's not is if he misses games. That's the only question. And I have him missing 1 game. It's the only reason he's not top 5 for me, because I projected him getting slightly banged up. Just breaking into a little bit of risk.
Yeah. Here's my thing, man. Austin Ekeler has bulked up constantly the last 2 years, right? You see that he gets freaking yoked. Like, I'm talking yoked. And so I think what we might see is we're done with this, let's turn it over to a mixture of Josh Kelly, Justin Jackson, Larry Roundtree for a majority of the first and second down carries. I think we're going to see more Ekeler in those situations, which is why I did project him over 200 carries. I think.
Yeah, no, you're right in doing so. It's just me saying, okay, yeah, there's still a committee type offense. I'm perfectly fine with that. I literally have him getting 190 carries. It's absolutely ridiculous. A lower yards per game, the dude is going to go off. I have him pretty much the same points per game and everything. I don't see literally how he is not a top 5 running back unless he gets hurt.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I have him again, like you said. I have him higher, but I like Swift. I think I have the difference between Swift and Ekeler in terms of ADP and stuff. That's why I went with Swift. And plus, you could talk about Ekeler. That's why we have a show together.
Exactly.
All right, I'm going to get into
some guy we both want to talk about.
That's facts. Yeah. So my second A1 running back is David Montgomery. I had a nice conversation with Seward this weekend about. We had a conversation back in February. He said that he's a prime sell candidate. I said, I don't think he is. I really don't. David Montgomery in 2020, he finished as RB4. And for whatever reason, his ADP has dropped to RB16, despite the fact that they inserted a rushing quarterback. And so what does inserting a rushing quarterback really mean? Sure, the touchdown upside might come down a bit, but that's not where David Montgomery really made his bread last year. David Montgomery made his bread in the passing game. We've talked about how targets matter more for running backs. David Montgomery got a lot of them, but Tariq Cohen's back. He's really not yet, first of all. Second of all, David Montgomery it's been a consistent discussion with Matt Nagy and the Chicago Bears media that he wants to get David Montgomery touches. David Montgomery wants touches as well. I've seen some clips of him just basically begging Nagy to give him the ball some more.
I believe the quote was they think he's going to get 20 plus a game.
Well, and so I heard someone break it down. Basically what what he was insinuating is we want him to get 20 a game because we want to be running the clock out at the end of games, which with Justin Fields at quarterback, they can very well be doing that. This offense is going to be good. Your next counterpoint will be, but their offensive line isn't very good. You're right. It's not, but it wasn't last year, and it's better this year. So
I don't know if I would for sure say it's better, but I definitely wouldn't say it's worse.
Right. Well, I will say they got rid of Leno. They're supposed to get Tevin Jenkins. We need to see if Tevin Jenkins can play. I don't. Yeah, exactly. and that's the reason they went out and they traded up for Tevin Jenkins, I think, is because when you have a quarterback like Fields, what you now have is the ability to run real, true RPOs. When you have receivers like Allen Robinson, who are going to catch freaking everything thrown their way, and guys like Darnell Mooney, who can separate really, really quickly, you have a lethal RPO system that we're not going to see in the preseason, so you're not going to get a taste of it. But what you will see when David Montgomery, I hope his ankle is okay. I'm talking about everyone that's freaking hurt. It sucks. He got hurt on the first play in the preseason game. I think they kept him out precautionary reasons, but Monty's going to have massive, massive holes to run through. And so you've got a guy that finished his RB4 last year. He got over 50 targets. You've got a perceived similar workload. You'll say, oh, Justin Fields doesn't check down to his running backs. No, but they will scheme up touches for David Montgomery. And we did see in that first preseason game, Justin Fields is okay with checking down. He didn't at Ohio State because he didn't have to. The dude was so fucking good that he could just force throws down the field. Sometimes it got him into trouble. It's the Deshaun Watson effect from when he was in college. I think David Montgomery is going to get his fair share of targets. I have him currently as my RB9, which is significantly higher than consensus at RB16. I think he finishes as an RB1 again, and I think the discussion around David Montgomery next year is, can he do it again? And we're going to keep saying that. We're going to keep saying that. And the conclusion is going to be David Montgomery is the best running back from his class because I think he finishes above Miles Sanders and Josh Jacobs this year.
That's close. No doubt. That's no doubt.
Yeah. So David Montgomery, I know I have 2 Chicago Bears on my A1 list. I understand how scary that sounds. But it's going to happen for him again. I do believe that. So
yeah, I'm literally I think I have him at RB16, and that's literally with baking in all the risk of Cohen. Again, floor.
Yeah. All right. Who's your second running back, Randy?
All right. I fought back and forth. I didn't want to do another basically RB1, so I went with Chase Edmonds here. I was going to go Carson, but I let it go. But mainly because the difference for me was the ADP difference. ADP is 67, so mid to late 6th round in 12 teams, obviously. RB27, he's my RB24, higher than our consensus of 23. It's in a split backfield last year with a more explosive, healthier, better pass catching back than James Conner. That's his competition this year. And that was Kenny Drake, obviously. Edmonds was RB25 when he had 150 total touches. Do I have to make the other parts of the argument? He's going to get more than 150 touches. Doesn't mean he's going to get 500 touches, 400. He's not going to get 250 carries. That's ridiculous. But he's still going to be a good RB2 for you. There's no question to me. You're getting him as RB3 price. I think that's the biggest thing. I have Connor getting pretty much the same amount of carries as Edmonds, taking over his goal line back, and at least for the first 2 downs at the goal line, and getting a decent amount of targets and catches. I believe I have 21 catches for Connor. That's respectable. I mean, it's better than Damian Harris for sure. I just think Edmonds is an easy value in drafts right now. He's going to get an expanded role. He's going to be the 1A of this backfield. The Cardinals are going to continue to be a leader in points and plays per game. It's just going to keep going like that. He's going to keep racking up opportunities and high value opportunities at that. He gets a lot of checkdowns. He's used in routes, different aspects of the receiving game. I just don't understand how we're scared to take a guy being taken as RB3, who at worst will be a back-end RB2, that has the chance of being a high-end RB2. I wouldn't go as far as saying he's an RB1 because I think he would have to get a little bit more goal line work and have a great touchdown percentage. And I'm just not going to project that, but he finishes RB3 62.5% of the time last year, and he only had 2 games with over 8 carries. What are we doing, guys? What are we literally? What are we doing? I literally have him getting 4 more touches per game this year. That's it. Yep. It's not a crazy bump. He's gonna be an RB2 and at worst a mid-level one. That's the argument.
Yeah, no, I'm with you with this, man, and I actually think that he gets just an absurd amount of targets. And the reason I think that you mentioned that he gets checkdowns, he does. Kyler's not. I'm not going to go on a Kyler hate spree here, but Kyler is not an elite downfield passer. He's good. He's got a good deep ball, but he can't throw over the middle of the field unless he's throwing to his running back who is just sitting there underneath. But what they do with Chase Edmonds is they run him routes. So he's good at it. I know they have Rondale Moore. Rondale Moore's going to get his too. This, like you said, the offense they run so many freaking plays that he's going to be an RB2, and he's Nyheim Hines light, and I think he can finish. Nyheim Hines finished as an RB1 once. I think that's in his realm of possibilities being drafted as an RB3. I'm not going to project it either. That's not what I have, but I think it's possible, and that's just crazy value. You love to see it.
It's just instant value. Like that's the thing, and you don't have to expect anything better. You literally
weekly flex too. I mean,
exactly. You know? If for most, you're drafting him as an RB3, possibly as your RB4 for a team. As a belief,
if you're Randy,
yeah, for sure, right? And that's the thing. Like, if he does what he did last year, you still made a great pick.
Yep. Yeah.
Why are we debating this? That's the craziest thing to me.
Yeah, I agree. Before we get into our wide receivers and our one tight end, because of course we can't pick 2 because that's just pointless. It's kind of pointless this year and every year. We are going to hear from our sponsors.
Experience a new way to play daily fantasy sports and esports on Thrive Fantasy. Thrive's game concept revolves around player props, which are simple over-unders on player stats. There are contests for traditional sports including the NFL, NBA, MLB, PGA, and cricket, as well as esports titles including CSGO, Dota 2, League of Legends, and more coming soon. Here's how to play. Choose your lineup of over-unders for top-tier athletes that have the biggest impact on the game. Each prop has a fantasy point total based on how likely it is to hit. The more points the selection is worth, the riskier it is. Rack up the most points and win a share of the prize pool. Thrive is awarded over $2 million in cash, so come and prop up today.
Use promo code THECUT to get matching deposits up to $50 with a minimum deposit of $20. Thank you to Thrive Fantasy. Yeah, major thank you to Thrive Fantasy for always sponsoring the podcast, and I'm never changing that. Again, that's part of it. You got to hear the breath at the beginning. It's good stuff. All right, let's get into our wide receivers,
it's like a parent's voicemail. I hate it.
It's not great. It's very bad. We need to fix it, but it's part of the brand, you know. We start. It says mediocre up there in the corner, so we got to stick to that sometime. So. What's not mediocre is this guy. His name is Julio Jones. We already talked about him a little bit, but he's being drafted as wide receiver 15, number 41 overall. I have him as my wide receiver 8. I understand that I am just way against the grain here. Everyone, including Randy, thinks that A.J. Brown is going to be the wide receiver 1 for the Titans. I do not think that. And the reason I do not think that is because Julio Jones was very good when he was on the fucking field last year. And I'm talking like best receiver in the game type stuff. The only person that was better than him in terms of defense adjusted value over average was Will Fuller. Will Fuller obviously did not play a full season because he never does. He was on pace because of those PEDs. But
that's because he's on pace because he's on PEDs.
Yeah. And your argument is Julio never plays a full season. You're right, and he's hurt right now. Again, still talking about hurt guys, but the thing is they're being very, very careful with Julio because they know that they don't want this injury to linger, and I think Julio is going to be on the field for a majority of 2021. Again, he is better than AJ Brown as a receiver, just bar for bar, he is better than AJ Brown. Within the offense, I can hear your argument. I can hear everyone's argument. AJ Brown is in his third year within this scheme. He has the rapport with Ryan Tannehill. I understand all that. Julio Jones isn't a guy that needs rapport to be good. It doesn't matter who is throwing him the ball. He is one of the greatest receivers of all time, and he's the best receiver of our current generation here, I think. So the thing is again, the film backs it. When you watch him play in 2020, he was still dusting dudes. Like, his routes so clean. He's still the monster that he always was. And so for whatever reason, we have just deemed AJ Brown better than Julio Jones. And so I'm not buying it. I'm not buying that Julio Jones is going to play second fiddle to anyone. He didn't. Granted, in fantasy points last year, I know Calvin Ridley was better on a points per game basis. Different types of receivers, though. Calvin Ridley feasted off of PPR. AJ Brown doesn't feast off of PPR. AJ Brown feasts off of touchdowns, big playability, the same way that Julio Jones feasts. AJ Brown models his game off of Julio, and it's very, very apparent when you watch them play. I mean, they're both great receivers in their own right. My argument is that the touchdown upside is actually higher with Ryan Tannehill than it was with Matt Ryan. How can you say that, Christian? Matt Ryan is one of the best quarterbacks in the league and always has been. He's a top 12 guy. Maybe that's overselling it. Maybe you would never say that to me. However,
maybe
Matt
early
Ryan,
on, but when it got to about the third quarter,
oh yeah, RIP. But Ryan Tannehill is a very good red zone quarterback. Matt Ryan was never that. He could never find Julio in the red zone, which made no sense whatsoever. Julio was always open in the red zone, and Matt Ryan just would look a different way. That's okay, but Ryan Tannehill isn't going to do that, I don't think. I think your two top touchdown getters are going to be Julio and AJ Brown. And while I still have AJ Brown, I believe, with one or two more touchdowns, Julio's potentially going to see one of the higher touchdown marks of his career. And I know that's kind of a bold proclamation at 47 years old, like you guys all think Julio is. He's just turning 31, 32, whatever he is. I don't care. Doesn't matter. He's still elite. He's still going to produce, and you can get him at an extreme value. And I'm going to pick him up in almost every redraft league I'm in. I'll reach for him too. Fuck it. Let's go.
You do that. For me, Julio Jones is the better route runner of the two, in my opinion, and that might lead to more possession style receiver, more PPR, and I think that's how you have it projected.
Mm-hmm.
It's just I can't get to the point where I have him getting more targets and more receptions than AJ Brown. I understand the vision, and I see it. I can see it happening. I don't have it that way. For me, I'm actually just not touching Julio at this point.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are just going to get hung up on the injuries, and it's fair. Yeah, it's a fair argument in my opinion, but I don't care. I'm all in on Julio this year. So.
It's fair. I think I'm baking in the switching team slightly as well early on, but it's fine. Julio is incredible. He's quite possibly the second. I would say he's in contention to be the second best wide receiver that hasn't won a Super Bowl.
That's fair. Yeah. All right.
It's basically Randy Moss and then Calvin Johnson.
For sure. All right. Who's your first wide receiver, A1?
Okay. Let's just short and simple. I accidentally did two Rams, but only one at wide receiver. It's the only one that I care about. Robert Woods. Done.
Okay.
It's pretty. I just have to get this out. It's just one of those things with Robert Woods. You have to get this out so everyone could let's just all breathe and be okay with this. ADP of 39, early fourth round, wide receiver 14, my wide receiver 10, Cuts wide receiver 11. 2020, wide receiver 13. 2019, wide receiver 14. 2018, wide receiver 11. This is his floor for being a Ram. This is probably the least disrespected Woods has ever been going into a season, so good job, guys. I think it's still too low. He's great and consistent. Now has the best QB of his career. Offense was stagnant all of last year and arguably the year before as well. Now it's explosive with Stafford, in my opinion. Everyone will eat up in this passing game, but I think it's obviously led by Woods and Kupp. And Woods is more of like the gadget and deep threat of the two, with also being a good possession style receiver that Kupp is. Woods rightfully most likely and should be a top 5 receiver this year. I am a 10. Again, conservative, guys. Yeah. That's the thing with these projections is when you actually start to look at them and break them down and you see minimal upgrades for a huge situational upgrade, that means that this has the potential to be much, much higher. And I think that's I think my Julios are a little bit probably way too on the low end in conservative, but Woods here. Last year, 8.06 targets per game. This year I have him 8.29. 5.6 catches to 5.8. 10.4 yards per reception to 11.26, now being more of a deep threat and explosive offense. 6 touchdowns to 7 touchdowns. I have him with 7 less carries and 1 less rushing touchdown. I have him with, 24 more points? That's it?
Yeah.
0.6 points per game more. I literally need someone to tell me a legitimate reason why it's not an almost inevitable fact that Woods is almost – he should be in consideration with the top 5 as the most clear lock for wide receiver 1 this year, and he has every chance to be a top 5. And once you're in that spot, you know how that goes. Once you're in the top 5, you have a shot to be the 1.
Yep, it's true. It's true. And Robert Woods, we've always been more Robert Woods than Cooper Kupp. The one factor is we don't know what Matthew Stafford's going to like. What I think the offense is going to like is a guy that can go downfield. Cooper Kupp can't work the short game. He can work the intermediate, but Woods can do it all. And so I'm all in on this as well. I think I have Robert Woods as a wide receiver 1, 2 in my rankings.
Yeah, I literally, again, it's if he gets hurt, nothing we can do. But if he's not hurt, he's a wide receiver 1. I don't even think there's a chance that it's not. Yeah, he would have to have the worst touchdown luck possible.
Yeah, which he did a couple of years ago, and he still finished really highly.
And his lowest finish as a Ram was wide receiver 14.
Yeah, it's outstanding. Always a value. Speaking of guys that if they get hurt, we can't do anything about it. This is a guy that I've been preaching about for months now. And let me make the case here because he's being drafted as wide receiver 48. I think that is a crime. Just knowing the context of what we are about to see out of this Los Angeles Chargers offense. I have him as my wide receiver 24. I have him as a back-end wide receiver 2. Am I bullish? Absolutely. I don't know anyone that has him ranked higher than me. I have not seen it. If it's out there, please send it to me. I would love to chat with that person about why they're so fucking smart. Because Mike Williams, okay, he's had a 1,000-yard season. Check. He's had a 10-touchdown season. Check. They weren't in the same season, but he's done it. And the perception around Mike Williams is he can't stay healthy. He can, though. In the last couple of years, he's played over 90% of the total games. He does sometimes get banged up within a game, and he leaves early. But his snap counts are still very, very good. He typically fights through injuries. And so the sheer fact is that Mike Williams should not get hurt as much in the new role that he is going to play within this new scheme, which we have equated to the New Orleans Saints. That's pretty much what they're going to be running, which is going to be fun. If you listen to the Athletic Football Show, they talk all the time about they interview coaches, And what coaches normally do, the first team that they watch in the offseason is the New Orleans Saints. They've got such a dynamic offense. They run such unique schemes. And what that offense is tailored for is a prime X receiver. The coaches have now said Mike Williams is our X receiver. He is not going to play Z anymore because running him on go routes just never made sense. And so Mike Williams is going to actually get targets. He's going to have a lower average depth of target because he is going to play that role. And so then you're going to see less freak injuries. He is going to have a lower ADOT, which means, he might not average as many yards per catch. That's okay because the receptions are going to go up. I do believe that this is the year that we see the 1,000 yards and the 10 touchdowns because this offense is going to be just outstanding. If Justin Herbert, even if he regresses, I have this offense as one of the best in the NFL. I also have them running more often than they did last year because I do have them winning a few more games, and I still have Mike Williams finishing as a wide receiver too. If all things fall into place, I know that the Saints have never had a guy like Keenan Allen in their scheme, and so that's a huge factor too. Even with Keenan Allen finishing as a wide receiver 1, I have Mike Williams finishing as a back end 2. If I'm a little high and he's a wide receiver 3, you still got him at value because you're drafting him at virtually a wide receiver 5 for your team. He will be your 5 or your 6 on your team. And so new scheme, new role within the scheme should lead to just a lot of production out of Mike Williams. I know it's the 5th-year breakout. It never happens. They're not going to extend him, blah, 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 blah. Doesn't matter. He's going to go produce in 2021, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think his range of outcomes is like wide receiver 20 to like wide receiver 35.
Yeah.
Worst case 40. So you're getting a value no matter what. I am at 33. We both have him at a 15-game pace. If he somehow plays 17, I don't see how he's not a wide receiver 2. Honestly, for me, I think it was if he played 17 games, he was like wide receiver 22 for me. Yeah. Because of his points per game. That we're slightly different, and I think it's literally just like 4 catches at like 100 yards or something, which is easy.
Yeah, for sure. All right, who's your second wide receiver A1?
All right, another guy that we've been all over, Brandon Cooks. It took a lot for me not to do Deontay Johnson, but it's like 3 years of me just not shutting up, so I figured I'd move on slightly. Brandon Cooks, ADP of 88, early 8th round, wide receiver 36. He's my 18, Cuts 18. Last year's wide receiver 16. I mean, simple. In the last 6 years, only 7 wide receivers have had top 24 finishes. At least 5 of those years, Mike Evans, Julio Jones, Devontae Adams, Hopkins, Mari Cooper, Jarvis Landry, and Cooks. That's it. And he's done this with 4 different quarterbacks. Texans will be dog shit. That's not shocking. Guess what, guys? They were dog shit last year, guys.
Yep.
Haha. Shocker, right? That's why the Dolphins had a really high pick, even when they traded down. I mean, come on, guys.
Yeah. Doesn't matter.
They literally were the 3rd worst team last year. We're expecting that to be much, much worse somehow. Come on. He's the clear top guy, possibly only option, and he will easily get 100 targets. They're going to be down a lot early and often, just like they were last year, which leads to more passes, and that equals Brandon Cooks to be in this year's garbage time god. And I'm perfectly fine with that being my wide receiver 4, basically 3-4 on my team, and really being a wide receiver 2. There's still a chance, obviously, for Watson to be his quarterback this year, which would elevate this offense a bit more and makes Cooks the biggest steal of the draft, easily. Yeah, he's literally the last wide receiver 3 being drafted. Most drafts, he's probably wide receiver 4. I don't see how he could finish that low without injury. And I literally have him only for 16 games, so baking in the limited injury that he's had. His most injuries is him just getting the back-to-back concussions pretty much that 1 year. So he's pretty healthy.
Another guy that he gets that rep for no reason. He Yeah, it's same thing with Mike. Mike Williams does suffer a lot of injuries, but again, he plays through them. Brandon Cooks is pretty much the same way.
Yeah. I have him basically just doing what he did last year. And that's with his team projection, over 700 less passing yards, 12 less passing touchdowns, and 6 more picks through the air. This is literally, I gave him a slightly worse cash percentage and a worse points per game percentage, and he's wide receiver 18. Yeah. Why is he being drafted as wide receiver 36? That makes absolutely no sense.
It's free money.
People are acting like the Texans won't be able to get a first down like the year. This team is, again, awful last year with Watson. Sure, they'll be a little bit worse off without Watson. Why does that make it that a guy that literally can't be scripted out of a game unless he's triple teamed dead to us? Why? That makes no sense to me. He's a wide receiver 2. That's what he's been. That's what he is. Top end one usually, but he's gonna be a mid wide receiver 2 for everyone.
Yeah,
I just don't understand how he's not a wide receiver 2 for you unless he gets hurt. And by the way, Anthony Miller, who is probably the wide receiver 2 of this team, just fucked his shoulder again.
Yeah.
There's
no structural
literally
damage.
No one else to throw to. Nico Collins is the guy we're talking about that hasn't played a snap yet in the actual NFL. And then you got Kiki QT, who is another guy that gets banged up a lot and is pretty much just a slot guy that gets a couple targets dumped down.
Yeah.
What are we doing?
Yeah. Shout out David Johnson, though, because I think he'll get a lot of targets. Even though the rumor is that Philip Lindsay is the RB1. Yeah, of course he is, because he's going to run between the tackles, and David Johnson's going to be the back. It doesn't matter. None of that matters.
I think we've been so starved for football that people forget that these unofficial depth charts are usually kind of dog shit.
Yeah, they're bad.
Right?
They're traditionally bad. I'm with you on Brandon Cooks. I may have him higher. I think we actually both have him at 18. Is that what you said you have him at?
I have him at 18, yes. I have him just behind Mike Evans, which ironically, because they're basically the same guy.
Yeah, that's true.
With production.
Yeah. It's free money, guys. It's honestly, that's as free money as it gets.
It's the thing. Everyone's like, why draft Mike Evans or Chris Godwin? You could take Antonio Brown. Draft Brandon Cooks a round earlier. That's literally pretty much all you got to do. Maybe it's 2 rounds, but you're getting a discounted Mike Evans, basically, on a dog shit team. They were dog shit last year.
It's crazy.
There's no argument for me that Brandon Cooks won't be better than wide receiver 36.
Yeah, same. Really quickly, before we get into our tight ends, we had a couple comments that I missed. Rate this team: Dak, Cook, Gaskin, Ridley, Debo, Lamb, Waller, Rams, Butker, and then the bench is Trevor, Zach Moss, Russell Gage, Jamar Chase, Dallas Goedert. B, I think you need some better running backs outside of Cook.
I would say personally, B, because you need better running backs outside of Cook. Probably didn't need the second tight end. Probably didn't need the second quarterback. And if you have Gaskins as your RB2, you probably should have a better wide receiver 3 than Debo.
Yeah, I hear you there. And then the other comment, Sermon or Robbie Anderson as my flex. Are you playing
Robbie
games
Anderson.
already? First of all?
Robbie Anderson.
Sure. Robbie Anderson for sure.
One's a starter, one's not.
Yeah, right now. All right, let's get into our tight ends. The last couple things. We're going to fly through these because tight ends. My A1 tight end this year is Robert Tonyan. And the reason that Robert Tonyan is my A1 tight end is Aaron Rodgers has returned. And so if Aaron Rodgers...
I thought it was because you called dibs.
I did call dibs. So Robert Tonyan being drafted at tight end 10. That sounds, man, that's high, right? For a guy that had just outstanding touchdown production, that's got to regress. I have him at tight end 5. Sue me. I don't care. I put in here in our show doc, quote unquote touchdown regression. Yeah, he probably won't see a touchdown every 5 targets or so. It was pretty much around that last year. He had less than 60 targets. He scored 11 touchdowns. It probably won't happen. But what will happen is Robert Tonyan was really, really good and efficient with his targets to the point that he was actually first in DVOA at 51.7%. He was 51% better than the average tight end. He was second in defensive adjusted yards above replacement, behind only Travis Kelce. This guy was as elite as they come when he was on the field last year, which was the whole season. And the reason he was that elite is because the Packers do a really, really good job in scheming open different players within their scheme. Devontae Adams takes a lot of attention. Aaron Jones takes a lot of attention. Their wide receivers don't, but that doesn't matter because Robert Tonyan leaks out. We talked about the leak play with Justin Fields. That happens with Robert Tonyan on a consistent basis. The way the Packers scheme things up, it confuses the shit out of defenses, and I think it's going to continue doing so. Tonyan's going to get more work. He's going to get a few more targets, in my opinion. Even if the touchdown regression does come, which, by the way, I don't really think it does because Aaron Rodgers is going to throw a lot of touchdowns. Even if it does come, he's going to get more PPR points. He's going to get more yards. He's going to produce at a level that most people fade this guy because, again, he can't score that many touchdowns. When you have a quarterback that is as good as Aaron Rodgers, that can absolutely happen, especially with an extra game. It might not be at the same rate, but Tonyan right now is the number 2 option in this offense, in an offense that's going to score points. Maybe 3 behind Jones is what you would say.
Jones,
yeah, that's probably fair. But number 3 option in an offense that utilizes him, that's going to score points, that's going to just consistently win games too. And it's going to be because Robert Tonyan is one of the best tight ends in football. Super Bowl run is coming. They're going to be on their A game because they know they have one more shot before it's Jordan Love time. I think that's pretty much the case. And
pretty sure it's the last year with Tonyan too. Like
it is.
So he'll be.
Yeah, and Adams. They've got a lot of. This is their last run at it, and so I think they just go balls to the wall, for lack of a better term. And I think Tonyan gets a ton of work. No pun intended.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you. Obviously, we argued about who would get him, but you have him ranked higher, so you won.
I did.
And you know what? I actually, you have some touchdown regression with percentage wise. I have like good regression, like for him, like 3 less touchdowns with an extra game and being a high value target all year. And he's my 8. Like baking the regression, he's 8. You're still getting the value. There's no question.
Yeah, for sure. All right, your tight end.
All right. I felt because you took Tonyan, first off, and I want a special shout out to Blake Jarwin, who is being brought back very slowly. Dalton Schultz also looks good. I think Jarwin's still the starter, which means he's a ridiculous value right now in drafts. He's going undrafted most places. All right. But Tyler Higbee, it's kind of against brand, but on brand because it's us. We were so against Higbee last year at his price, rightfully so, because of Gerald Everett. But let's just break it down. Right now, ADP of 124, so basically early 11th round, tight end 13. He is my 10, cuts tight end 15, so some people hate him in our show.
Yeah, that's true. It might be me. Sorry.
You're fine. But if he's going as tight end 13, and I think he's going to be at worst tight end 10, that's already pretty much a 3-round value pick for you because the tight end time right now is Robert Tonyan, ironically, and he's going basically 2 and like 2/3 of a round higher than Tyler Higbee is right now. So last year, again, we were against him. We were right. Tight end 17. That was all because of Everett, in my opinion, and a sluggish offense. Everett was proven an effective piece of the tight end position on that team, and Higbee did his best without Everett there. 6 times is all in the career of Higbee that he's had more than 67 yards receiving. 5 of those came at the end of 2019 where Everett was hurt, and Higbee ended up finishing tight end 8. Everett is now gone, and there's no proven tight end 2 on the roster. Let's just get this out there. Bryson Hopkins, Jacob Harris. Literally 0 targets in the
Johnny
NFL.
Munt. Johnny Munt, bro. No, I'm just kidding.
The fuck cares? No, those two don't even have a target. Not alone reception. They don't have a target.
I know.
He's got no competition that's anywhere near proven. Me and you both think Jacob Harris in the future. He's an athletic freak. He might be able to get a little bit of work, especially later in the year. Maybe he gets a little bit boosted work and gives this offense another weapon. That's only going to be better for Higbee, guys. This, again, same with Robert Woods, best QB of his career. All disrespect to Jared Goff. Stafford has famously loved tight ends, especially in the red zone. Both those facts, Everett being gone and having now Stafford, leads him to the argument that it's clearly going to be a more explosive offense and an increase in targets and possibly touchdowns for Higbee. He has the chance to repeat the 2019 performance of tight end 8. I think that's pretty easily inevitable. I am, again, as always, conservative in my projections, and there's an easy expected production increase for Higbee. It's not even a question. He's going to be better. So I have him with less than one target more per game, less than one catch more per game, less than 1 yard more per game per reception. I mean, he's got one more touchdown. That's it. And he's only has not even 40 more points, like 36 more points, 38 more points. And he's a little 1.3 more points per game. That's not a sexy stat line. That's not sexy. And it's tight end 10. Yeah. Tight ends pass. Biggest thing with tight ends. Tight ends pass the top 3. Question marks. There's not even a question there. Tight end 3 top. Sure, tier 2. Seems promising this season when you have Hawkinson, Andrews, and Pitts. Sure.
And Tanya.
But he's tier 3. But let's just be real here. If you don't get the top 3, everyone's telling you, if you don't get the top 3, wait. There's a lot of people that still are going to take that tier 2. I'm out on the tier 2. I'm taking Tunyon or Higbee. I'm waiting, getting these two guys that have top 5 upside easily and are top 10 easily, in my opinion. He's literally 23 points behind Mark Andrews for tight end 5 for me. Yeah. That's it. That's the difference, people.
Yeah. So one big game, pretty much. Yeah, that's
why I'm passing the second tier right there, literally.
Yeah. You make a compelling argument. I do think that Jacob Harris gets more work a little earlier, and so that's why I have Higbee finishing inside the top 20-ish, but I do have him on the lower end. And so the other justification for that, I do think that Stafford does like his receivers a bit too, but I think I need to.
If you want targets to Harris, you're on the hype train, bud.
I am on the hype train. I think he's really, really good. I think he is.
I think he's really, really raw.
He is. But so say the high value targets are the touchdowns for Higbee, right? That's what he gets. That's where I think Harris is gonna do pretty well because he's a jump ball, go get him type of guy. I probably need to. Yeah, I probably have to come down on Harris a little bit, and so Higbee probably bumps up in my projections. Like I said, you make a compelling argument. I get it. I'm probably out on Higbee just because that's around the same range as Tunyon, and so both of our A1s are around the same range.
But that's the thing. Some people are going to be on Tunyon this year. I don't think anyone's really on Higbee to that extent, especially with him going so much later.
Yeah,
I mean,
I hear you. All right.
I know there's a receiver I end up having to take at round 10 or the 3 rounds earlier. So that's why Higbee might end up on a team or 2.
Yeah, that's fair. All right, guys, that'll do it for our A1 episode. Let us know what you think of our A1s. Are you out on some of these guys? Can you convince us that we're crazy?
That won't happen.
That definitely won't happen, but I mean, it's worth a shot and it's fun to talk about football and we love doing that. And you can do that with us at the Cut FFB on Twitter, on Facebook, at C Williams NFL is my Twitter at. Randy is at our Hall NFL. So just DM us, add us, whatever you want to do. We love talking about football, and we'll have a conversation with you. We don't make you subscribe to Patreon or anything like that to talk to you. I know some people do that. So yeah, and make sure you guys head to thecutffb.com. A lot of really, really good articles still coming out. We're going to have our week 1 projections up, our week 1 rankings up here in the next few weeks. Make sure you tune into the Coach Approach on Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern time. They've got another really good guest. They've got a ton of great guests lined up. If you haven't subscribed,
I'm sure it's only expanded after this weekend.
Yep. And if you guys haven't subscribed to the podcast, the Coach Approach does go through there, as well as our 2 episodes per week. And then we'll have a few new shows as well once the season kicks off. Still in development and test stages. And I know I've said that for a long time, but that's okay because the season isn't here yet. You're going to see a ton of content pumping through our podcast feed, our YouTube. So go search the Cut FFB on YouTube and make sure you click subscribe. We're about to hit 100 subscribers, which is really cool. We really never pumped our YouTube up, but we're very excited to get there now. Again, we're on any podcast, your favorite podcast app. We're there. So make sure you subscribe. Feel free to leave us a 4 or 5 star review if you think that we're good. If you don't, just DM us and tell us that we suck. That's okay. You can tell us. We'd like feedback. So we will be back on Thursday morning. We are podcast only on Thursdays, but that is going to be our schedule prediction show, right, Randy?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
And Super Bowl prediction.
And Super Bowl prediction. So that's going to be a fun one. Very excited for that one. Randy, do you have anything to add before we get out of here?
No, I think we covered everything. It was just super fun to be again at the expo. Favorite thing was just being near you a couple the 20 times that I was Christian, bald man, right? Justin Fields, how you doing? It's like, okay.
I'm known for 2 things.
That's it.
This and it's Justin Fields. Yeah.
But again, great meeting everyone again. Like you said, I would say mostly gonna be there again next year. The date's already been picked. So it's gonna be a blast. Hopefully, I might have probably like 3 more tweets by then. So, maybe it'll be a little bit bigger presence,
That's the volume that Randy's producing on Twitter.
Goddamn right.
Which is okay. That's the smart way to do Twitter. So, all right, guys. Thank you guys for joining us on the live feed. Remember, we are live every Monday night at 10:30 p.m. Eastern time, but we will be on the podcast. You will be able to download this tomorrow or today. You already did. Who cares? For Randy Hall, I am Christian Williams. We will talk to you guys later this week. Peace.